Picture this. You're walking through a parking lot on a sunny Thursday afternoon. It's July in Florida, so it's hot, humid, and just another regular day. Families are going about their business. Kids are probably complaining about the heat. Maybe you're thinking about what you're gonna make for dinner. Then suddenly you hear shouting. You turn around and see two people arguing. One guy is on the ground. The other is standing over him. The guy on the ground reaches for something, and in less than 5 seconds, a man is dying, a child is traumatized for life, and a community is about to be torn apart. But here's the thing that's gonna blow your mind. The shooter doesn't run. He doesn't panic. He doesn't even try to help the man he just shot. Instead, he calmly waits for the police to arrive and says 4 simple words that he thinks will set him free. I stood my ground. This is the story of what happened to Marquise McLaughlin in Clearwater, Florida in 2018. And this case is going to make you question everything you think you know about self-defense laws in America. Because what happened that day wasn't just a tragedy. It was a window into one of the most controversial laws in the country, and how it can be twisted, manipulated, and used to justify the unjustifiable. So let's rewind to the actual moment. Marquise McLaughlin, his girlfriend Brittany, and their 3 young children pull into a convenience store parking lot. Brittany parks in a handicapped space while Marquise runs inside with their 5-year-old son. Now, this isn't ideal, parking in a handicapped space without a permit, but this is Florida, and this is something people do all the time when they're just running in quickly. Enter Michael Draka. He's a 47-year-old man who doesn't work at the store, doesn't own the property, but for some reason sees himself as the self-appointed parking lot enforcer. He notices Brittany's car in the handicapped spot and walks over to confront her. According to witnesses, Draka is aggressive. He's yelling at her, pointing at the car, clearly trying to escalate the situation. Brittany says she felt threatened, so she cracks the window to talk but doesn't get out. That's when Marquise walks out of the store and sees a man shouting at his girlfriend through the car window. He immediately reacts, shoving Draka to the ground to get him away from her. Now pause right here. This is the critical moment. Marquise is standing several feet back. Draka is on the ground. There's a pause. No one is lunging. No one is attacking. But then, Draka pulls out a gun and shoots. He fires a single round into Marquise's chest. Marquise stumbles back into the store, collapses in front of his 5-year-old son, and dies minutes later. At first it looked like Draka might walk away with no charges. Why? Because of Florida's Stand Your Ground law. This law gives people the right to use deadly force if they reasonably believe their life is in danger. They don't have to retreat even if a safe escape is possible. The idea is supposed to protect people who are genuinely defending themselves from threats. But critics say the law is too vague, too easy to exploit, and opens the door for subjective fear to justify almost anything, even murder. And here's where it gets complicated. Surveillance video clearly shows that Marquise was backing away when Draka pulled the trigger. There was a full second between the shove and the shot. Draka had time to pull his gun, aim and fire while Marquise was moving backward. So was this really self-defense? Or was it someone looking for a fight, using the law as a shield? Prosecutors eventually decided to file manslaughter charges against Draka. The case went to trial, and that's when more disturbing details started to emerge. Turns out, Draka had a history of threatening people over parking spots. One truck driver testified that Drejka had pulled a gun on him during a parking dispute. Almost the exact same situation, but that time, no one got shot. During the trial, prosecutors argued that Drejka wasn't scared. He was angry. He wasn't reacting to a threat. He was retaliating because he got shoved. And when you watch the video, it's hard to argue with that. Drejka never tried to retreat. He didn't appear injured. He never called for help. He never even checked on Marquis after shooting him. He just stood there, waiting for police, confident that he'd be protected by the law. His defense team leaned hard on stand your ground. They said Drejka believed he was in danger, and that belief, whether reasonable or not, gave him the right to use deadly force. But the jury didn't buy it. After seeing the video, hearing from witnesses, and learning about Drejka's history of aggressive behavior, they returned a verdict: guilty of manslaughter. Drejka was sentenced to 20 years in prison. But here's the thing. Even though justice was served in this case, the larger issue didn't go away. The Stand Your Ground law is still in place, not just in Florida, but in more than half the states in the country. Marquise McLaughlin's death sparked national outrage. Protests erupted across Florida. Civil rights groups demanded the repeal or reform of Stand Your Ground laws. Politicians were forced to respond. Even the sheriff who originally declined to arrest Drejka was criticized for misapplying the law. It was a moment when the public started asking real questions. Who gets to claim fear? Who gets the benefit of the doubt? Because when you look at these cases, a disturbing pattern starts to emerge. Stand Your Ground is invoked more successfully by white defendants than by people of color. And when the victim is black, the odds of the shooter walking free go up significantly. So while Drejka was convicted, the law that almost let him walk free still exists. And Marcus's family will never get him back. Brittany had to explain to her children why their father was gone. She had to carry the weight of that trauma, while also dealing with the reality that the man who killed Marcus nearly walked away without consequence. Let's talk about fear for a second, because Stand Your Ground hinges entirely on it. If you say you were afraid for your life, that's all it takes to justify deadly force under this law. But fear is subjective. It's emotional. It's shaped by bias, by past experiences, by what you've been taught to believe about the people around you. That's why critics argue the law is dangerous. It doesn't require actual danger, just perceived danger. And that opens the door for race, stereotypes, and implicit bias to influence who lives and who dies. Supporters of the law say it's about personal freedom. They argue that no one should be legally required to run from a threat. But when that freedom leads to someone shooting an unarmed father in front of his kids, shouldn't we at least ask whether the law is being applied fairly? Marquise McLaughlin didn't pose a deadly threat. He shoved someone away from his family and was walking away when he was shot. His kids watched him die. His partner had to live with that memory. And for what? Because someone got pushed in a parking lot? Marquise's story isn't just about one shooting. It's about how we define justice. It's about who gets protected by the law and who gets punished. It's about whether we're willing to examine a system that lets fear become a license to kill. We like to think our laws are fair. But laws don't exist in a vacuum. They live in the real world. They're interpreted by real people, with real biases, making real decisions under pressure. And sometimes, those decisions cost people their lives. So let me ask you, should fear be enough to justify taking a life? Should a law allow you to pull the trigger just because you felt afraid, even if you weren't actually in danger? If Marquise had been the one who pulled the trigger that day, would we even be having this conversation? That's what makes stories like this so important. Because once you see how laws like Stand Your Ground can be used and misused, you start to realize just how fragile the line between justice and injustice really is. So tell us in the comments, do you think Stand Your Ground should still be legal? Or is it time to rewrite the rules? And if you want more stories that shine a light on the cracks in our system, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because this isn't just one story. It's part of a much bigger problem. And the only way to fix it is to understand how deep it goes.